Hey, welcome back to another Code Peterson tutorial. It has been a while. And how about an Adobe Illustrator vector graphics that we could use as like an icon for a web page or for an app, and would be flexible enough for you to tailor it to your brand colors and do what you want to do with it. So let's go ahead and begin. We'll start off with a nice little rectangle tool here. And for the color, I just have it here for something I was working on before, and I don't have any stroke on the outside, so I'll leave it like that. I'm going to have the fill be a color, any color you want to choose, and stroke will have nothing in there. And I am actually going to change the size of this rectangle so we're all kind of on the same page here for it. We'll go 275 pixels wide, and for the height we will go 175. And this is something we can scale down later, so it doesn't have to be anything we're too permanent with. Since this is a vector graphic, we don't have to worry about degrading the graphics by making it too small or too large. So we have a lot of flexibility with this right here. Once that is done, then we can go here to the these little corners. There's these 4 corners in this rectangle, and you can kind of bring these in and round the corners a little bit. If you want to do it more precisely, over here in the transform section there's the 3 dots for the more options, and we could click there and we can change each of these individually by unlinking them, or we can change them all at the same time by keeping it linked. And I'm going to type in the number 30 to get us started here. And again, that's something you can always go back in and change and modify later if you need to. Next thing that I want to do is have an ellipse tool. It's just tucked away underneath that rectangle tool, and while holding the shift button I'll click and drag so this stays scaled, because I don't really want to make it an ellipse, I want to make it a circle. And for the size of this, my first one I will have be 125 by 125. That looks pretty good. And then I can hold down the Alt key, and then I'm going to click and drag this over, and I'm going to make my second circle. This one I will have be 250 by 250. So that's a little bit too much of a difference between these than what I was thinking, so I will reselect my first circle, and maybe instead of 150, maybe let's try 175 by 175 instead of, or whatever I had before, maybe it was 125. Well, 175 by 175, and that looks a whole lot better for this. So kind of making sure these are about evenly aligned, so the bottom of these kind of match pretty close. And just kind of eyeballing this a little bit. And I don't know if as long as this gap between here is similar to here and similar to there, I think we're in pretty good shape. So that's our film reels right there. Now for the lens cap, we can go over here to our shapes again, and this time the polygon tool. And again, I held shift while I clicked and dragged to make this hexagon here. And if I move my cursor right here just off the corner, you see how it bends that arrow just like that. I'm going to hold shift and click and drag and move this so that the flat sides are on the edges. Okay, and then once I'm done with that, I will use my rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that starts way to the right of this hexagon, and then it's just barely a freckle going to go across the midpoint of this hexagon here. So it looks like that. Alright, and if I were to zoom in, I would see that this side is just a shade smaller than this side with this being covered. Once I have that done, then select both of those objects using your selection tool and use your pathfinder over here to create your click to minus front effect, and that looks pretty good. So once we have that done, then what we can do is we can modify this a little bit. These corners, so on this I am going to use my direct selection tool here, and I'm going to select these two shorter corners over here, the wider angles but off the shorter side, and I'll just barely bring this in, just barely round those edges just a little bit. And then on this side I'll select these two, and these I'll bring it in maybe just a little bit more, and we'll probably be pretty good with that. So these ones here, I'll look and see what my measurements were. Or if you double click on these, since we're doing them one at a time, this one here just was barely over 8. These two are barely over 8. And then over here, I'll double click, and this one is just barely under 1.5. So I could have said 8 and 1.5 if I wanted to on those, but you'll kind of just judge it on how you want it to look. Once I have that done, then I'm going to resize this shape and make it a little bit smaller. So for the width of this, let's go like 75 wide. And then for the height, we will go 125. And that does look pretty good. So then when I put this here, you know, I could kind of go with the same width on this if I wanted to. If I want this to be kind of even right there, spaced from the others, maybe a little bit closer, probably look better. And then once you have it done, you can select all of those and hold shift while you resize it and see how it looks everywhere. And if when you're done you decide you don't like the shapes of some of these, you know, you can always kind of bring this in a little bit closer if you wanted to. We can kind of do the same with these circles a little bit. We can always adjust those around until it kind of meets the eyeball test with this. And to fine-tune that, you can select those and use your arrow keys on your keyboard. I'm going to center that out a little bit, and then before you know it, you have your little icon that is infinitely scalable for whatever it is you want to make. So again, you can make it as big as you want or as small as you want, and it's always going to have those smooth edges there. And I think this is something that would work nice on your web page, especially if you're using like a hover effect for a menu. You move your mouse over it and it slowly just barely grows, like maybe 0.5% or 1% or something like that. Or again, if you just want it to be an icon on something else that you're creating. There you have it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make your changes to it. Use any colors, gradients, or any other effects you want to play with it, and love to see yours when you're finished with it. I appreciate you watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.